Mini episode 686 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by that NBA lottery pick, your pop culture influenced look at the world of hoops. Follow them on the web at that NBALotterypick.com.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Welcome to mini episode 686 of the FDH Lounge. This is FDH managing partner Rick Morris with our Super Bowl 50 review. The big game was a big fat aesthetic flop, even as it featured the all-time great Denver Broncos defense and the Carolina Panthers counterpart that is one of today's top units. Most of us in the viewing audience were too young to remember Super Bowl V, which has commonly been held up as the biggest slop fest of them all, but this one has to come close. This final chapter of the 2015-16 season also revealed some key points to us, and we've got the top 5 of them right here. Number 5. An all-time top defense will expose any and all of your offensive balance issues. By the time the playoffs rolled around, attrition by injury had hit New England's running game so hard that it was non-existent, yet the Pats got by the outstanding Kansas City D in the divisional round. But as we saw at Mile High, it was a much different story against these Broncos. During the regular season, Carolina adapted their offense away from the loss of Kelvin Benjamin, as Mike Shula put together tremendous schematics that emphasized both Cam Newton and Jonathan Stewart in the overwhelming Panther run game. Consequently, Carolina placed 24th in the league in passing yardage, although the playoff romps against the fierce Seahawks and Cardinals appeared to indicate that the offense could be as diversified as it chose to be. The key word there is appeared, because Denver proved otherwise. While their defense, along with the 1985 Bears, 2000 Ravens, 2002 Bucks, and the Seahawks of 2 years ago seem to prove that no offense can stand up to opposition on that elite level, we now know for sure that a team has no chance of pulling off the perfect storm upset if the defense is able to cheat against any part of the offensive unit. Number 4. Carolina was indeed what they had been branded on our show during these playoffs, Team Glass Jaw. They played the easiest schedule in the league according to the FDH metrics based on our final power rankings, and they avoided a moment of truth against Seattle and Arizona by smoking both of them very early. As such, the Panthers were in a singularly unfortunate position, facing not only the best defensive unit in the league, but one of the best of all time, while dealing with a level of adversity on their journey much, much smaller than your average Super Bowl qualifier. This game certainly figured in the eyes of most educated observers to play out much as it did, a defensive chess match with field goals and field position playing an outsized role. Many of us still gave the edge to the Panthers because of the hugely primitive state of the Bronco offense, and while we were right about Denver being incredibly underwhelming offensively, the absolute crumbling of the Panther offense in the face of the physicality they faced was breathtaking. With all of the delusions of grandeur in the bandwagon-jumping Carolina fan base, there were almost no backers of this team that thought that cruising onto the biggest stage with a 17-1 record and without facing significant adversity would be a minus, especially against a Denver team that looked vulnerable for having scraped through so many tough situations during the season. But the crucible of the regular season shaped the Broncos into champions, while the Panthers' avoidance of adversity came back to bite them when it mattered most. Number 3. Let's not fit Cam Newton for a Hall of Fame Blazer just yet. The would-be new face of the NFL flopped on the monumental stage of the 50th Super Bowl, culminating in a pathetic avoidance of contact when his late-game fumble sealed his team's fate. And his petulant, front-running, post-game performance, which mimicked the worst aspects of his cherry-picking fan base, reinforces the growing image of him as a punk who needs to learn respect for the game and for his opponents. The preceding sentence, it should be noted, is in no way endorsed by our own Kyle Ross. However, while the magnitude of a humiliation like this is rare on the big stage for a top QB, it should be noted that it's not completely unprecedented, and actually, An example of redemption was apparent on the opposite sideline that night. John Elway is one of the few top-flight passers in NFL history to have experienced such a thumping in the season's final game, more than once actually, but he did eventually make it to the top. Having said that, accomplishing that became crucial to his place in history because of the sour memories previously created. So Newton is going to have to replace these images with championship ones if he is to be regarded among the best quarterbacks ever. Number 2, Wade Phillips clinched his place in history as one of the game's greatest coordinators. Let's dispense with the fiction that Wade Phillips doesn't know exactly what he's doing. He's put in great performances in different locations over time, but in coming full circle back to Denver this year, to a team where he had the same position from 1989 to 1992 and was head coach the next 2 years before being unceremoniously fired, all you can say is wow. We've long made the case in the FDH Lounge that offensive and defensive coordinators should be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and by that standard, Phillips is by now a no-brainer Hall of Famer. In terms of a meeting of the minds, the marquee battle going in was going to be Phillips versus Mike Shula, who had done so much to get the most out of all of the pieces of the Panther offense this year, and Wade won that going away, albeit with superior firepower. This is certainly peak Bronco in terms of this era of their defense. Other top units usually do a slow fade from this peak of greatness as it becomes more difficult to keep all of the pieces together. So strangely enough, even if the ultimate success doesn't repeat itself in the next few years, Wade Phillips may actually look even better doing more with less. Number 1, it's deja vu with a legendary Denver quarterback riding off into the sunset with a second Lombardi trophy. Kind of. Like John Elway, his boss for the past few seasons, Peyton Manning completed his quest for the second world championship, but in a reversal of the years where he carried incomplete Colt teams beyond their normal capabilities, he was completely carried by his teammates on defense. As such, Super Bowl 50 managed to end with a story unprecedented in league history. An iconic quarterback who wins it all at or near the end of his run, but with nothing left in the tank. Someone who merely needed to manage the game and barely managed to do that. We remember Johnny Unitas at the end, Joe Namath, and others who limped to the finish line ignominiously. Manning isn't really any different, except for the extremely fortunate circumstances that allowed for his happy ending. The league has concluded the first half-century of the Super Bowl era by bidding farewell to one of its defining superstars, and now we'll all be watching the likes of Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, and others as they battle to take his spot. As always, we'll be watching and commentating right here in the FDH Lounge.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, Waitresses, Strippers, Bartenders, Garbage Men, Janitors, Microwave Popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and The Periodic Table of Elements.